Title: The Girl with the Marked Face. I remember the first time I saw her. It was the way the sun caught her face that made her stand out. Brilliant, impossible to ignore. But it wasn't the glow of the sun that made her different. It was her face, her markings strange and beautiful in a way I couldn't comprehend. I had heard the whispers, of course. Everyone had. It's not every day that a child is born with markings on her face that no one can explain. Not a scar, not a birthmark, but something ancient. Intricate lines like tattoos traced the contours of her cheeks and forehead, twisting into symbols that seemed both familiar and foreign. Some believed it was a curse. Others said it was a blessing. Most just whispered behind her back. She was a girl who was always alone, drifting through the world like a shadow no one wanted to chase. I never understood why people were so afraid of her until I saw her in person. I used to pass by her when I'd visit the small town square. She would always be sitting on a bench, reading or sketching in her notebook. No one would sit with her, though, not even the children, whose laughter would echo in the air. They were drawn to their own world, unwilling to bridge the invisible line that separated them from her. But something about her loneliness called to me. One rainy afternoon, I found myself walking to the square with no real destination in mind. The streets were slick, and the world seemed muted under a gray sky. As I rounded the corner near the fountain, I saw her again. There she was, sitting as always, with her head down, absorbed in her world. But today was different. She wasn't alone. There was a boy with her, tall, with dark hair, and eyes that looked too kind for someone so young. They were laughing, not loudly, but in that quiet way that made everything else seem distant. It was as if the world had paused for them. And for once, she didn't look like the girl with the strange markings. She looked like someone beautiful. The boy reached out, gently brushing his hand against hers. And for the first time in my life, I saw her smile. A smile so warm, so pure, that it almost knocked the breath out of me. The markings on her face, which everyone thought made her different, now seemed to glow in the sunlight. It was as if they were a part of her, not separate, but an integral part of who she was. Curiosity gnawed at me. I had to know what had changed. Why had this boy, this young man, chosen to be with her, to be the one who made her laugh, to see her the way I had never seen her? I approached them, my heart pounding in my chest. The boy turned toward me first. There was something in his eyes, an understanding that only people who had truly seen each other shared. And then she looked up. For the briefest moment, I saw the pain in her eyes, the reflection of all those years of solitude. But it was fleeting, gone in the blink of an eye, replaced by the same warmth I had seen earlier. She stood up, her gaze steady. "Can I help you?" she asked softly. I swallowed. I just wanted to say, "It's nice to see you smiling." Her lips curled up at the corners. "It's nice to be seen," and that's when I understood. Her markings weren't a curse, nor were they a blessing. They were a story, one written on her skin by the hands of time, and she had spent so long hiding from the world, believing no one could read it. She thought that her differences meant she would always be alone. But here was this boy, this young man, who didn't see her as an outcast or a mystery. He saw her as her. He saw her in a way no one else had, with eyes that didn't shy away from what made her unique. He saw her as the beautiful person she was, and not the mark she bore. I began, but the words failed me. I realized then that the story wasn't mine to tell. It was theirs. "I think," she said, glancing at the boy beside her, "sometimes it just takes one person to see you as you are." And that was it. That was the message. For all of us who hide behind masks of insecurities or fears, believing we are not enough, sometimes all it takes is for one person to see us, to really see us. So, to you, the person reading this, look around you. There are people in your life who may seem different, who may seem alone, who may be carrying burdens you can't see. Take a moment. Look deeper. See them. You never know, your one act of kindness, your one smile, could be the thing that changes their world forever. And who knows? They might just change yours too.
Welcome to this deep dive, where we'll be exploring The Girl with a Marked Face, a short story that really gets you thinking about things like perception, acceptance, and how we connect with each other as humans. It's amazing how much this story packs into such a short space.
Yeah, it really uses that fictional world to like hold up a mirror to us, our society, by focusing on this one girl's experience.
And right away, there's this striking image of the girl. The way the story describes her facial markings, it's like they're almost glowing in the sunlight. But then it shifts to how people react to her. The fear, the curiosity, even the whispers. It makes you wonder how we become so used to fearing when we don't immediately understand.
It's sad, but often true. When we come across something different, we kind of default to being afraid. We're wanting to shut it out. It's like we see difference as a threat. And this story really highlights how that plays out in a social setting.
Yeah, and you could even connect that to that halo effect idea from psychology.
Yeah.
Where we judge someone's character just based on how they look. It's especially powerful when the story shows how the other kids treat her, avoiding her in the town square. Their laughter, almost like a constant reminder of how alone she is. It really made me think about how much those early social experiences shape us.
It's true. Childhood is like the foundation for how we learn to be social. It's where we pick up on what's normal, what's accepted. But sadly, it's also where prejudice can start to take root.
Now, the story's not all doom and gloom. There's this glimmer of hope with the shift in weather.
Okay.
It's a rainy day, the mood's kind of somber.
Yeah.
And then this boy appears. But he's different, he's kind, he's laughing with her, connecting with her. It's like that one act of connection changes everything.
Yeah, that shift is really important. It shows just how powerful genuine human connection can be. Think about how we see ourselves, our self-worth. It's so deeply affected by how others treat us. If we're constantly faced with negativity or rejection, it really takes a toll. But then when someone really sees us, for who we are, with kindness and acceptance, it can be incredibly healing. And that's what this boy embodies. He sees past the markings, past the superficial, and just offers acceptance.
And you see that reflected in the girl, too. The story describes her smile as radiant, full of joy. Even her markings seem to glow when she's happy, as if his acceptance helps her see herself in a new light, a better light. But then there's the narrator, too. They've been watching the girl. And through their eyes, we see another layer of perception unfold. The narrator realizes the markings aren't inherently good or bad. They're a story. And the boy seems to get that. He sees her, not just the marks.
That's the key point. The story challenges us to confront our own biases, to look beyond the surface instead of putting people in boxes based on how they look. It encourages us to consider their stories, the experiences that have shaped them. The boy's perspective reminds us that everyone has a story, a depth that goes way beyond first impressions.
What's really fascinating is that he doesn't need to know her story to accept her. That's a powerful message.
It is.
It really makes you think about how we approach people who are different in our own lives. Are we quick to judge, or do we pause and try to see the individual? The story behind the markings, I think that's where the story starts to get really interesting. Expert.
Yeah, it really does.
And it makes me think about that idea of social comparison theory.
Oh, right.
Yeah. How we're always kind of sizing ourselves up against other people.
Yeah, how different.
And we even feel insecure, or sometimes even superior. But this story reminds us that we shift from judging to being curious. It can completely change those interactions. When we choose understanding over fear, that's where real connection happens.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to this line that really struck a chord with me.
Okay.
Sometimes it just takes one person to see you as you are. So simple, but so powerful. It speaks to that deep need to be seen, understood, accepted for who we truly are.
Yeah. Have you ever had that experience where you felt truly seen by someone?
It's like a weight lifts off.
No, it really is. It's like a fundamental human need, that sense of belonging, validation. It's so empowering, especially when it comes from someone we respect or look up to. And it reminds us that we can all be that person for someone else, offer that same acceptance and understanding without judgment.
It's funny. I was just reading something about how even small acts of kindness can have this ripple effect, just like a smile, a listening ear, a genuine attempt to connect. These things can be huge for someone who's feeling alone or misunderstood.
Totally agree. And that brings us back to the power of stories. This simple story about a girl with a marked face. It reminds us of these deep truths about human connection. It's like a call to action, challenging us to confront our own biases and to see the unique stories in every single person.
What's really sticking with me is this idea of markings Being more than just physical traits, what if we expand that to include emotional markings, cultural markings, even experiential markings? We all carry these invisible stories, these layers that shape how we see the world
Right.
and how we interact with each other. It's not just about the girl with the marked face. It's about all of us. What markings do we carry, and how do they influence how we see the world and the
Yeah.
people around us?
That's such an important point. We often focus on the visible differences, but the invisible ones can be just as powerful in how we perceive and judge others. Think about someone's upbringing, their cultural background, their past experiences. All of these things leave marks that contribute to who they are.
Yeah. This deep dive is really making me think about my own markings, the visible and invisible ones. It's like peeling back layers of perception, both of myself and of others.
And that's the beauty of stories like this. They spark conversations, they challenge our assumptions, and ultimately, they encourage us to be more open, more understanding, more connected as human beings.
This story ends with a line that's both thought-provoking and hopeful. It says, sometimes it just takes one person to see you as you are. But what if we each strive to be that person for someone else? Imagine the kind of world we could create.
It's a powerful vision, one where understanding and acceptance become the norm rather than the exception. And it all starts with that individual choice, that conscious effort to see beyond the surface and recognize the shared humanity. That connects us all.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. I think it's given us a lot to ponder. It really has. It feels like we've gone so much deeper than just the words on the page. What do you think is the most important takeaway from all this?
I think for me, it's that reminder that to really connect with someone, you got to be willing to see past the surface. You know, we all have those markings, those things that make us unique, the
Right.
things that shape our experiences and how we see the world. But instead of letting those markings divide us, we can choose to see them as like invitations to understand each other better.
I like that. It's like we're turning judgment on its head. Instead of assuming we know someone's story just from their markings, we come to them with curiosity, with an open mind.
Exactly. And that small change in how we see things, it can make a big difference, not just in our own interactions, but in how we approach difference as a whole society. Imagine a world where we celebrate those differences, where we see them as strengths, not weaknesses.
That's a powerful image. And this story, it kind of gives us a way to get there. It all starts with that choice we make, to be the one who sees, who accepts.
And remember, it's not just about accepting others, it's about accepting ourselves too.
Yeah.
Recognizing and embracing our own markings. The more we understand ourselves, the better we can understand and connect with those around us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this challenge. As you go about your day, think about the markings you see in yourself and in others. What stories are waiting to be told? And how can you be the one who chooses to see, to listen, to connect? Because sometimes that's all it takes to make a world of difference.
Thank you for watching and listening to this life-changing story. Share with us how you can relate to this story and your closing thoughts on the story. Like, share, and subscribe.